أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ثم الصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه الأخيار أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Alhamdulillah, with our تصريف العزي we are done with the المعتل العين. So the last lesson that we took on that was the اسم الفاعل والمفعول من الأجوف. We are going to look now at the المعتل اللام, which is the fi'l, the fi'l that has the last letter being a weak letter, alif, waw, or yai. So that is our lesson for today. He says, وَالثَّالِثُ الْمُعْتَلُّ اللَّامِ. The third of the mu'tal that we are going to look at, because we've looked at the al-mu'tallu al-fa, we've looked at the al-mu'tallu al-ain, the last one, which is the al-mu'tallu al-lam. He says, وَيُقَالُ لَهُ النَّاقِصُ. The al-mu'tallu al-lam is also called الناقص. It is also called ذوالأربعة. So when you have الناقص, that means it is short of something. Because when the last letter is a weak letter, it's like something is cut at the end. And in the تصريف, you see that. You realize that in many of his تصريفات, you realize that the last letter will fall, making it short of something. And it's also called ذوالأربعة. He says, لِكَوْنِ مَاضِيهِ عَلَى أَرْبَعَةِ أَحْرُفٍ. The last one, he said, it could be called ذو الثلاثة with the al-mu'tallu al-ain. Because when you attach it to the ta'ul fa'il, then you realize that ta'ul fa'il al-mutaharrika, then you realize that the ainul fi'l will fall and the madi would have 4 letters. Like qala, you say kultu, qaf, lam, ta, kultu. You have 3 letters, so we call it dhul thalasa. But here it is called dhul arba because the madi, when it comes into contact with the ta'ul fa'il, or it comes into contact with ta'u ana, ta'ul mutakallim, the ta'u dhamma. It says إذا أخبرت عن نفسك. So if you say ذهبت, أكلت, if you conjugate it to ana, then you realize that the al-fi'l al-mu'tallu lam would, the lam will still be there, and you have the 4 letters together with the ta. Example of that, I think he didn't mention any of that here. So when you have a verb like jara, rama, when you bring it into contact with ta'ul fa'il, you have ramaytu, jaraytu. So you have jim, ra, yai, ta. You have 4 letters. That is why it is also called dhul arba. So when you hear al-mu'tallu lam being called dhul arba, this is it. And he says, فَالْمُجَرَّدُ, the mujarrad of the al-mu'tallu lam or al-naqis, تُقْلَبُ الْواو وَالْيَاءُ مِنْهُ أَلِفًا. If it is mu'tallu lam and the harf al-illa is min aslin wawi or min aslin ya'i, the waw or yai is converted or is changed to alif. Why? إذا تحركتا وانفتح ما قبله إذا تحركتا وانفتح ما قبلهما. That happens if the alif is having a haraka, and not the alif but the harf al-illa at the end of the verb is having a haraka, and what comes before it is also having fatha. In that case, the harf al-illa is changed to alif. What does it mean? Let's say you have a verb, for example, like rama. This pencil is broken. Where is my pencil? Okay, just let me just give indications so that you write. So when you have a verb like rama, when you look at the asl, you realize that it is coming from a yai, ramaytu, a yarmi, rami, the masdar. So you would have looked at it as it is ramaya, ramaya. Now, so if the original is ramaya, we realize that the harful illa is having a haraka, which is the yai. It is having a haraka. And ma qablaha maftuh, rama, what comes before the yai is maftuh. In that case, the yai has to change to alif. If it is غزا, يغزو, غزو, min aslin wawi, then you say غزوا. then we realize that the harf al-illa at the end, taharrakat, is having a haraka. Okay, and then the what comes before it is having fatha, in fatha ma qablaha. In that case, tuqlabul waw alifan. And so we say gazawa, even though that is the asl, we say gaza. Okay, so when you see the verbs, like originally, you see them as he gives us example here, ke, gaza, rama, asa, raha. You realize that the asl is not this. The asl was there, the alif is coming from a waw or yai, but because the ما قبل الألف ما قبل الواو أو ياي انفتح والياي والواو تحركتا قلبت الواو والياي إلى ألف قلبت ألفا was changed to ألف. And then he says وكذلك الفعل الزائد على الثلاثة. الفعل الزائد الفعل here he means المعتل اللام. وكذلك الفعل المعتل اللام الزائد على الثلاثة. The weak ending verb that is also زائد and ثلاثة يعني there are حروف زائدة. Like أعطى, more than 3-lettered verb. أعطى. Okay. اشترى, استقصى. All these as well, أعطى as well. You realize that if you convert it to mudari, you have يعطي. Okay. You realize that the moment you change it to mudari, masdar and all that, then you realize that the alif at the end is actually coming from a waw or yai. Why are they made alif? Because what comes before the last letter, which is the weak letter, is having fatha, and the last letter is also vowelized. So like you saying, a'ataya, a'ataya. What comes before the yai is fatha, and the yai itself is mutaharrik. In that case, we change the yai into alif to make it a'ata. Likewise, ishtara. Don't say ishtaraya, ishtara, istaqsa, like that. So it says, وَإِسْمُ الْمَفْعُولُ مِنْهُ. The ism al-maf'ul from this is, he says, كَالْمُعْطَى. So what is he bringing? What is he lining up for us? He's telling us that the alif and yai, the waw and yai, that comes at the end of the al-fi'l al-mu'tal al-lam is converted to alif if what comes before it is fatha and the waw and yai is having a haraka. It's changed to alif. So he's telling us that the fi'l itself, which is the al-mujarrad, and he brings us to the az-za'id. And he says ism al-maf'ul as well also experiences the same. So we have al-mu'ta, al-mushtara, al-mustaqsa. Okay, so the last letter is alif, but it's not originally alif. It is either waw or yai, but because the waw or yai had a haraka, and what came before it is fatha, instead of saying something like al-mustaqsawa, al-mustaqsaw, okay, why don't we just say al-mustaqsa, al-mushtara, instead of saying al-mushtarayu, al-mushtarayu, al-mu'tayu, or something like, why don't we just make it mad, change the harf al-illa to mad? So that is what is happening even in the ism al-maf'ul. Says وَكَذَا إِذَا لَمْ يُسَمَّ الْفَاعِلُ مِنَ الْمُضَارِعِ. Likewise, if the fa'il of the mudari' is not mentioned, what is he saying? إِذَا كَانَ الْفِعْلُ مَبْنِي لِلْمَجْهُولِ, okay, or مَبْنِي لِلْمَفْعُولِ. And it is so because it is from the مَبْنِي لِلْمَجْهُولِ or مَبْنِي لِلْمَفْعُولِ that we get the ism al-maf'ul. So if the ism al-maf'ul also experiences the same where the harf al-illa is changed to alif at the end, then the fi'l al-mudari' al-mabni lil-majhul also experiences the same. كَقَوْلِكَ يُعْطَى, يُشْتَرَى, يُجْزَى, يُرْمَى. Okay, so you say يُرْمَيُ, you say يُجْزَوْ, يُجْزَوْ. The waw is having a haraka. What comes before it is fatha, so you just change the waw to alif, يُجْزَى, يُرْمَى, like that. Jamil says وَأَمَّا الْمَاضِي. As for the madi of the al-mu'tal al-lam, فَتُحْذَفُ اللَّامُ مِنْهُ فِي مِثَالِ فَعَلُوا مُطْلَقًا. We pay attention to this portion very well. In the fi'l madi of the al-mu'tal al-lam, تُحْذَفُ اللَّامُ مِنْهُ, the lam, which is the last letter of the verb, تُحْذَفُ مِنْهُ, we take it out of it, we omit it completely, we delete it. في مثالي, مثال here is wasn't. So if you are with me, take your pencil and just indicate that the مثال بمعنى wasn't or تصريف. So when we come to the meter فعلوا of any فعل المضارع any فعل المعتل اللام, then the لام الفعل would fall off. So pick for example, even before we read the example, pick for example any verb that is معتل اللام. Rama, Masha, Jara, Gaza, pick any of them. Conjugate it to whom, Madi. Say whom, Gazaw, whom, Ramaw, whom, Mashaw. And then you look at it, you realize that the lamul fa'il has fallen off. I think, let me bring my pencil, it's quite close. So pick any of them. We will see them in the examples right now, but pick, for example, Rama. Rama, Ra, Mim, Fatha, and Alif at the end. Conjugate it to whom they did, Fa'alu. You get Ramaw, Ra, Mim, Fatha, Waw, and then the Alif al-Fariqa at the end. So realize that the Lam al-Fail has fallen. What you have at the end is the Waw of Waw al-Jama'a and the Alif al-Fariqa. You don't have the Lam al-Fail, which was originally Alif. You don't have it again. Masha, you have Mashaw. So the Waw al-Jama'a and the Alif al-Fariqa that comes at the end of the Fa'alu will just come and attach to the Fa'ul Fail and the Ainul Fail, and that will be all. So in meters, on the meter Fa'alu, yani hum Fa'alu, when you conjugate al-fi'l al-mudari, al-fi'l al-mu'tal al-lam to it, the lam al-fi'l will fall off mutlaqan, completely, in all of it, it will fall off. And when you come to the meter Fa'alat, so Ramat, Jarat, Gazat, the lam al-fi'l will fall off. Likewise Fa'alata, yani huma Fa'alata, for the feminine. So you have something like Ramata, Mashyata, the lam al-fi'l will fall off. So you would have the Ramata and stuff like that. Jamil. When does this lam fall off? This is the qaid. He says, إِذَا انْفَتَحَ الْعَيْنُ. If the ayn al-fi'l is maftuh, then the lam will fall off in these meters. He gives us a lot of examples. Let's look at them. We have, he says, وَتَثْبُتُ فِي غَيْرِهَا. So if the ayn al-fi'l is dhamma or kasra, then the lam al-fi'l will stay. So let's look at the examples. He gives us first example, Gaza. In Gaza, the ayn al-fi'l is the zai. Okay, so you can label it. The ghain is the ayn al-fi'l, the zai is the fa'ul fi'l, and the alif is the lamul fi'l. Is the lamul fi'l. When you have this three. Now the ayn al-fi'l here, which is the zai, is maftu, is having fatha. So it means that it qualifies for this in these meters, in the fa'alu, fa'alat, fa'alata, the lamul fi'l will fall. Let's look at them. We have Gaza, Gazawa, Gazaw, which is the fa'alu, whom, Gazaw. In the Gazaw, you realize that you have Gain Fatha, Za Fatha, and the Wawul Jama'a comes right away. So the Lamul Fail has fallen off. Jamil. And then you have Gazat, which is the Fa'alat. Gazat as well, the Lamul Fail has fallen off. You only have Gain and Za, which is the Fa'ul Fail and the Ainul Fail. Ghazata, you realize the Lamul Fail has fallen off. Then you come to Gazawna. Then the Lamul Fail comes back, which is the Waw. It comes back again. Gazawna, Gazauta, Gazautuma, Gazautum, Gazauti, Gazautuma, Gazautunna, Gazautu, Gazawna. You realize that with apart from the whom, Gazaw, here Gazat, Huma, Gazata, you realize apart from these three, in the others, the Lamul Fail appears again. Jamil. Now we come to our second example, which is the Rama. He uses the Rama as the second example. Rama as well, it is maftu'ul ayn. And so we expect that in the hum, here, and huma of mu'annas, huma of the mu'annas, we realize that we are expecting it to fall. So we see Rama, Ramaya, Rammaw. We have only Ra, Mim, which is the Fa'ul Fi'l and the Ainul Fi'l. The Lamul Fi'l is gone. Rammaw, because it is the conjugation of for whom. Ramat, here. Ramata, huma, feminine. The Lamul Fi'l falls off. Now look at the rest. Ramayna, Yai has come back, which is the Lamul Fi'l. Ramaita, Ramaituma, Ramaitum, Ramaiti, Ramaituma, Ramaitunna, Ramaitu, Ramaina. So you realize that the Lamul Fi'l, which is the Ain here, it has come back. The Lamul Fi'l, which is the Yai, has come back in the remaining tasrif. Now let's look at where the Ainul Fi'l is Kasra. Radiya. Radiya. In Radiya, the Ainul Fi'l, which is Dad, is Kasra. Let's see if in the whom and the here and the huma for feminine, the Lamul Fi'l will fall. We have Radiya, Radiya, and then Radu. Radu. So you realize that in the Radu, the Lamul Fi'l, which is the Yai, has fallen off. Pay attention to that. Radu, the Lamul Fi'l has fallen off. Look at the rest. Radiyat, the Lamul Fi'l is there. Radiyata, the Lamul Fi'l is there. Why? Because he has told you already. Pay attention to the details. He says, فَتُحْذَفُ اللَّامُ مِنْهُ فِي مِثَالِ فَعَلُوا مُطْلَقًا. In the whom conjugation of the Madi, for the fi'l al-mu'tal al-lam, mutlaqan, whatever happens, the lamul fi'l will fall off. But the rest, he doesn't say mutlaqan. He says, وَفِي مِثَالِ فَعَلَتْ وَفَعَلَتَا. So we realize that when we come to Radiya, even though it is the Ainul Fi'l is Kasra, we still have the in the whom the Lamul Fi'l falling off. And then we come to Radiyat, Radiyata, and the remaining you find the Lamul Fi'l throughout. Let's look at the Dhamm al-Ain, where the Ainul Fi'l is Madmum. We see وَكَذَلِكَ سَرُوَ. Sarwa, Sin is the Fa'ul Fi'l, Ra is the Ainul Fi'l, Wa is the Lamul Fi'l. We see Sarwa, Sarwa, Saru. The Wa'ul Fi'l, the Lamul Fi'l has fallen off. It would have been Saru, Saru, Wu. Just like Radiya, Radu would have been Radiyu. But the Lamul Fi'l falls off. Here as well, Saru, the Lamul Fi'l falls off. And then we have Saru. And the rest, the Lamul Fi'l comes. Saruwat, Saruwata, Saruna, to the ending of it. So we realize that in the conjugation of the al-fi'l al-mu'tal al-lam for the past, in the past tense, for the pronoun whom, the Lamul Fi'l falls off any time. Always it falls off, mutlaqan. But with the rest he gave us for the here and the huma feminine, it is not always. It is only when you have the Ainul Fi'l being maftuh. If the Ainul Fi'l is maksur or madmum, then the here and the huma, the Lamul Fi'l will remain. It will only vanish in the hum. Jamil. And then he says, وإنما فتحت ما قبل واو الضمير في غزوا ورموا وضممت ما قبلها في ردوا وسروا لأن واو الضمير إذا اتصلت بالفعل الناقص بعد حذف اللام فإن انفتح ما قبلها أبقي على الفتحة وإن انضم أو كسر ضم. Let's pay attention to something. We are telling you now that if you are conjugating to whom, okay, you are conjugating to whom. For al-mu'tal al-lam, okay, we are telling you that the lamul fi'l will fall off mutlaqan. Now pick any of those mu'tal. When you drop the lam, consider what is left. What is the vowel on the Ainul Fi'l? So now I have something like Rama. I have something like Rama, or jara. Okay. I want to attach the wawul jama'ah for the whom conjugation. But I've been told that in the conjugation of the whom, the lamul fi'l has to fall off mutlaqan. So the alif at the end will fall off. What vowel is left after I've dropped the alif? Bimana, what vowel is on the ainul fi'l? We see clearly that the vowel is fatha. If the vowel is fatha, leave it as it is. And then bring your wawul jama'ah. So you say ramma, and then you bring your wawul jama'ah and add alif al-fariqa. Say rammaw, jaraw. Okay, jamil. Now, you have a verb like the radiya. Radiya. When you attach your wawul jama'ah and the alif al-fariqa, that is the waw spoon and the alif, you attach it to the verb. You are supposed to drop the ya at the end, the yai at the end. So you have raddi and the waw spoon and alif. What do? Look at the qaida again. He says, in fataha ma qablaha ubki ala al-fath. That is the first one we saw. If the remaining that you have, like the rama case, the ainul fi'l is having fatha, then leave the fatha as it is. Then say ramaw, jaraw. But wa in dhamma aw kusira, if the ainul fi'l that is left is dhamma or kasra, what does you do? Dumma. You make the ainul fi'l dhamma. So now that we are left with kasra, radiya, we are attaching the wawul jama'ah, so we take off the yai. What do? We make the dot dhamma, then we get radu. Radu. Pick for example, sarwa. 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 You are attaching your wawul jama'ah and alif al-fariqa. You take off the wa at the end. You are left with saru, and then you bring your wawul jama'ah. You have saru. So this is the qaida. Wawul damir, the wawul damir, underline it, or if you have a highlighter, highlight it, or write it somewhere and memorize it. Wawul damir is a tasalat bil fi'l al-naqisi, the waw of the pronoun whom, if it comes attached to al-fi'l al-naqis, which is the al-mu'tal al-lam, بعد حذف اللام, after omitting the lam al-fi'l, in fataha ma qablaha, if what comes after the waw, what comes before the waw, which is the ainul fi'l, is fatha, ubqiya ala al-fathi, you keep it on the fath. Wa in dhamma, if what comes on the ainul fi'l is dhamma, aw kusira or kasra, dumma, make it dhamma. After omitting the lam al-fi'l, you realize that the ainul fi'l is having fatha, leave it as it is, attach your wawul jama'ah. After omitting the lam al-fi'l, you realize that the ainul fi'l is dhamma or kasra, keep it on dhamma. So if it is kasra, bring it to dhamma. If it is dhamma, keep it on dhamma. Then attach your wawul jama'ah. So that is what brings the difference between sometimes you have ghazaw, and then sometimes you have radu, saru, even though all of them are mu'tallul lam. That is what is bringing this difference. And then he says, wa aslu radu, the root of radu is radiyu, as I showed you. Radiyu. But then are you going to say radiyu? No, we wouldn't say that in Arabic. So what we do in Arabiya, or what they did in Arabiya, is nakal harakat al-yai, which is the lam al-fi'l, ila ma qabla al-yai. So we move the dhamma to the dad. And then we do hazf of the yai, so we get radu. Nukilat dhammatul yai ila ad-dad wa huzifat al-yai, and then we omitted the yai there to avoid iltiqa as-sakinain. Then we got radu. So the original was radiyu. That is what originally it was. Radiyu. Radiyu. Radiyu, we don't pronounce that in Arabic. I'm sure by now you already know how certain words would be pronounced. So we move the we do nakal of the haraka of the yai, which is the dhamma, to the dad, and we get radu. Now we get yai without haraka, wow without haraka. We can't have that. So we omit the yai and then we bring our wow and get radu. Jamil, get radu. That is the opening of the الفعل المضارع الفعل المعتل اللام or الناقص or ذوالأربعة. Inshallah, next we'll be looking at the الفعل المضارع من الناقص, and then gradually we close the الأمر من الناقص اسم الفاعل والمفعول من الناقص, and I think that will be the closing for that one. I think the book is not that much. Inshallah, gradually we will move bit by bit like this, and then we will come to a beautiful ending together. Till we meet again on our next lesson, don't forget to revise, and if there is any question, do not hesitate to ask for clarification, inshallah. Till we meet again, have a very good Arabic time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.